Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan. With the recent release of the Book of Boba Fett episodes that feature Luke Skywalker, a lot of people have been looking back at the previous Luke Skywalker performances to see how they really feel about those. And CBR, the woke shill that it is, has some interesting takes on Luke's portrayal, specifically in The Return of the Jedi. And I've perused this article a little bit, and I am not liking what I saw in it. I am not a fan of their take, but let's get into it together and read through what this insane guy has to say. Star Wars, why Luke isn't Return of the Jedi's true hero. I kind of have to question, did they watch the movie? Because, he goes through a hero's journey in it when deciding, the best course of action for saving the galaxy, when his conversations with Yoda, even his conversation with Luke. He's very much the hero of the story. He rescues people, he fights bad guys, he defeats the Emperor, blows up the Death Star, or helps with that. It's yeah, he's the hero. But let's see what they have to say on why he isn't. While Luke is revered as the hero of the original Star Wars trilogy, his actions in Return of the Jedi are almost all out of self-interest. No, they're not. No, not all of them. Saving Han, not really out of self-interest. I mean, self-interest is in that, yeah, he benefits from having his friend back, sure, but it's to save his friend, and defeating Jabba the Hutt had some widespread consequences for his home planet, Tatooine, and up until the events of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, you were meant to assume that things got better until they changed the result of those actions. So yeah, he does that in the first act. In the second act, he decides to join with the mission to go to Endor and destroy the shield base. At that point, he hadn't decided to confront Vader 1v1 yet, or at least in the manner he does in the third act. And then in the third act, he chooses his father, and by doing so, saves the galaxy. But choosing his father isn't out of self-interest. If he was choosing his father, he would have killed his father. That's not self-interest. But, Jesus, definitions, man. From blowing up the first Death Star to the Emperor's defeat in the Battle of Endor, Luke Skywalker is seen as the true hero of the original trilogy. Yet by looking into his actions throughout Return of the Jedi, it's clear his action much more out of self-interest than in doing what's best for the rebellion. No, he wins in the end, so it was in the best interest for the rebellion. It saved everyone, so yeah, it was obviously in the best interest. What are they smoking at CBR? And he's forced into the role of becoming a legend, leading to all the problems in the sequel. No, I will not stand for that. You can question his motivations all day, but you will not say that the Return of the Jedi, his decisions in that, and the repercussions of the Return of the Jedi is what led to the disastrous sequel trilogy and the utter abomination of those stories. No, that is dog shit. He was a hero and he was a legend at the end of Return of the Jedi. And much as I don't like Book of Boba Fett, he's still very much in the Return of the Jedi mindset, where he is that sort of legend, kind of detached from himself. And Jesus Christ, he's not suffering from being a legend in Book of Boba Fett. And he wasn't suffering from being a legend in Return of the Jedi. And it wasn't suffering from being a legend that made him try to decide to kill his own nephew. Jesus Christ. No, it did not lead to his problems with the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy is just separate nonsense that has nothing to do with the original trilogy, besides names of characters. There's no doubt that Luke is the hero of Star Wars A New Hope, and he's the only person who could target the Death Star's weaknesses and save the rebellion, sure. Then during the Empire Strikes Back, he certainly does his best to aid in the rebels' cause, even if it means training to become better with the Force. Yeah, so he mentions that self-improvement is the best thing for the rebel cause in Empire Strikes Back, but self-improvement and stuff like that in Return of the Jedi isn't for the good of rebellion in Return of the Jedi. Yeah, he's not even being consistent with his own logic here. Yeah, in Return of the Jedi, it's clear his goals are much more personal. No, he knew that he was partially the distraction. So he knew when he gives up in the third act, where like throws away his lightsaber and says, "Do what you want with me. I won't kill my father." By that point, he had an idea. At least he was very confident in the actions of the rebels, his friends. So it wasn't like he just like gave up and be like, "I'm not gonna kill my dad, so fuck the rebellion." No, it was still, the rebellion's going to be all right. I've done what I needed to do. I'm not going to kill my father because there is good in him, and I'm not going to turn out like the Emperor. I'm not going to be as bad as him or even as bad as Anakin was at that time. So, yeah, Jesus. Luke makes it very clear to Yoda and Obi-Wan that he won't kill his father, which they see as a necessity if the war is to be won. And they were wrong. He made the right choice for the war and the rebellion because it saved the day in the end. That decision saved the day in the end. So he made the right choice for the rebellion and for himself. He goes on to lead the attack on Endor, which is no doubt a heroic move by all those involved. Yeah. Heroic. Selfless. However, once Luke surrenders himself to Vader, his true intentions are made clear. No, his presence was best served distracting the Emperor and Vader. Can you imagine if Vader had heard about what was happening at the Shield's base down on Endor and had gone down there to fight? His friends would have been in the line of danger, and there would have been a potential for widespread failure in their mission. But by keeping Vader and the Emperor distracted and away from that location, they had a chance to do what needed to be done and blow up the Shield receptacle or whatever the thing was called. So, yeah, it was the strategic move too. He pleads with his father to leave his hatred behind and return to Anakin Skywalker once more, but Vader replies, "It's too late for me, son," and sends him to the Emperor. It feels like they read a plot summary. They didn't even watch the movie because they're getting the events down, but none of the emotions or the acting behind it or motivations at all. In the throne room, Luke stands up to Vader with his weapon close by, a position most rebels would have dreamed of being in. What? He stood there with a weapon, and rebels wanted to be there with the rebels, I guess, yet Luke does not attack, still with hope of converting his father. When you know that someone is as powerful as the Emperor, but you've never met them before, when you first meet, you want to test out your enemy. Make sure, like, hey, I don't want to go in guns blazing. I want to see how powerful it is, see if I have a shot, see what my best strategy is. So, yeah, he's not striking right away because he's buying time, A, and B, he's trying to figure out if he has a shot. So, he's got several motivations that make it more strategically advantageous to wait. After seeing his friends fall into the Emperor's track, Luke finally strikes out and is confronted by Vader, but still Luke resists killing him. So, yeah, in that moment, he decides, all right, they're losing. Distraction isn't the priority anymore. I gotta take my shot and hope I get it. So the strategic motivation and the strategic priority changed at that moment when his friends weren't doing as well as he'd hoped they were or planned on them being. So he changed his plan. Still, for the rebellion chief in his mind. It isn't until the mention of Leia that Luke finally lets loose and aims to take his father down. So you're saying he's being the most selfless when he's being the most selfish by defending his sister's honor? That was a moment of weakness, which is good. Characters should have weakness and show those weaknesses. That's what make them good, compelling, three-dimensional characters. So that was a great moment. But that was the main moment in that entire encounter where he was being selfish, which is the opposite of what this article is trying to say. It's saying that he was being selfish before and then became selfless when his sister was mentioned and then became selfish again. And that's completely backwards to the events that transpired during that scene. If Luke's skills is clearly outmatching Vader's, he could have ended him once and for all and then immediately moved on to Palpatine. While no one would have wanted to see Luke kill his father, from the rebellion's point of view, it would have been the best course of action. He trusted the Force, and his instincts were telling him that he needs his father for more than just personal reasons. There is a strategic value from having Vader on his side and using the Force and his instinct. He was able to deduce that he has a good shot of getting Vader on his side. So it's, yes, personal, but it's also just strategic. There could be layered motivations behind a scenario. You're just picking one of the many motivations and saying, oh, the rest don't exist. He's just being a little bitch. It's like, no, it's way more complicated than that. If Vader and the Emperor were to die, the Empire would likely fall into panic and the rebels would have a chance to flee. Yes, true. But at this point, he still doesn't know if he's capable of fighting the Emperor, which he finds out later that he's not. The Emperor kicks his ass within 2 seconds. So he had no way of knowing whether or not that would happen. So he was being careful and planning it out, and then decided, I'm going to trust my father because that's what my instincts are saying. Not selfish, strategic, and self-motivated, sure, but there's enough other motivations to make it not wholly selfish, like they're trying to argue. Of course, it's known if Luke could have beaten Palpatine, he couldn't have. That was clear. But any other rebel in his position would have tried. Sure, and would have died immediately, so that wouldn't have been strategic. It would have been dumb. So you're saying, be like the dumb rebels in that scenario and die, instead of taking his time, figuring it out, and going with what the Force and his gut was telling him. Wow, he would have died. Great job, CBR, changing it all up to make it all the more dumb. And while it worked out in the end, there is a strong possibility Vader wouldn't have turned. Yes, and that's true of any strategic military or a maneuver of any sort like that. Like, attacking the Death Star has a strong chance of failure from Lando's perspective, but he still does it. It's not just like, we might lose, so we're not going to do the thing that has the best outcome and the best hope. We're just going to, like, run away. Or, like, his argument doesn't even stand up. There's always going to be a chance for failure, but he believed that he had the best shot the way he did it, and it worked out in his favor, so he did the right strategic move. Dumbass. If Luke died, Palpatine would have returned his attention to the rebel attack and had a chance to escape, continuing his reign in the Empire. Which is why Luke was dragging it out, because it kept Palpatine from returning his attention to the rebel attack. So he doesn't know if he can beat Palpatine, so he drags it out for as long as possible. Very strategic. While Luke's actions were the most moral, there's no avoiding the fact that he did it for himself and his father, not for the galaxy. Yet still, he became a legend of the rebellion, something he says he could never live up to in The Last Jedi. It's not a Star Wars movie, so I won't say that. It's The Last Jedi, which is some weird monster golem creature that has nothing to do with Star Wars. But aside from that, he was being strategic the whole time, and it worked out, and yes, he had personal motivations. Yes, he did things for his father, but there were other motivations that made it not selfish. If selfish desires align with selfless actions, they're not wholly selfish. And that was the motivation. That's the mark of a hero, is if they can find a way to align both of those and have the best outcome possible, which is exactly what Luke did in this story. You've got to try to marry the two. If you're wholly... I can't read that anymore. They need to rewatch the movie and pretend The Last Jedi doesn't exist, because it complicates everything and it's just garbage film. But Jesus. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.